look into therapy. And thank you so much. That is all I have.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Latina Sturgis. I am a registered behavioral therapist, and I am a behavioral research coordinator. I work at a So I do serve as a lead therapist at a preschool and developmental center where we are located on the east side of Chicago, right off of 79th and Stony Island. I also serve as a behavioral research coordinator at the Lurie Children's Hospital. So today, I appreciate Ms. Cindy for paving the way for me. I do not have to talk as much. Thank you, Pastor Anderson, for inviting me, and just thank you for being a gap in the community concerned with mental health. It's really important, and I really appreciate you for that. So today I will touch on typical and atypical development. So for those of you who are not aware, we are talking about autism at the moment. So just giving a brief overview of what autism is. Autism spectrum disorder is a developmental disability, thank you, a developmental disability caused by just a multitude of different things. So people with ASD may also have different ways of learning, movement, or playing. They have problems such as social communication and interactions, restricted or repetitive behaviors and interests. So on the right side of things, I am going to enlighten you on how to detect autism at an early age. So typical development, as a child grows, they learn and acquire more refined growth and fine motor skills as well as developing social skills. This pattern of skill acquisition is often referred to as normal or typical development. So some things that you would see at the age milestones, 3 months, begin to develop a social smile. So if you're laughing and playing with that child, they would, exchange a smile with you, maybe a giggle. They would become more expressive and communicating different needs with their face and their body. So typically you would be able to tell if a child is hungry, if they're constantly grabbing by their mouth, they're sucking on their fingers, things of that nature. At 7 months, they enjoy social play, so playing with toys, maybe playing with their siblings, playing with their parents. Again, giving just an appropriate exchange. 1 year old, they can cry, they can express emotions, they can repeat sounds and gestures, maybe sing songs from their favorite TV show. At the age of 2 years old, imitating behaviors from adults. So maybe if you cook with your child can show you that they can stir like mommy can stir, they can brush teeth like mommy can, brush teeth, or they can do things that, dad and other family members can do. At the age of 3 years old, they can play games, they can express affection effectively, they can play with toys appropriately, and they can also do things as manipulative, so puzzles, coloring appropriately, just different things of that nature. That's what we would consider typical development. Atypical development is a development that is unusual in its pattern. It's not within normal developmental milestones and adversely affects the child's overall development. Another diagnosis for atypical development is a global developmental delay. So I know that we've mentioned the word Asperger. So just to make you all aware that Asperger is no longer a diagnosis. So they have now completely wiped the word Asperger out of the DSM-5. So now we would just call it a global delay in adults. So some of the things that you would not see in a child who may potentially have autism would be at the age of 6 months, they may not smile or show expression to the things that you do. So maybe you're playing with them, tickling them, and they just don't react to it at all. At the age of 9 months, not giving you direct eye contact when you call their name, or they may not even recognize the repetition of you calling their name, or even when we say, hey, say mama, say dada, they're just not simply picking up on those words. Different things like fine motor, so not grabbing their toys if you give them a rattle, or they're not holding their bottle, they can't pick up their pacifiers and put it back in their mouth. now we're seeing that that fine motor and that gross motor is simply not there. That's one of the triggers to say, hey, something is wrong with my child. They're not doing things that typical 6, 9, or 12-month girls should do. 18 months to 3 years, so at that point they should be interested in their favorite shows and their favorite toy and their favorite family member. If they're not showing that social, emotional, and communication, that's another reason or another red flag just to simply say, hey, you know, my child is not acting what we would call typical. It's something wrong. So just skipping past that. So how can we determine or assess if that child has not reached that milestone? So an in-home assessment can be conducted to simply identify if a child is able to perform a specific task. So many of us have taken a child to the doctor. At our doctor's appointment, they will give you a few sheets of paper and they will say, hey, can you complete this before the child's doctor come in? So at this point, they will give you a sheet to say, my child can do this, they can't do this, or sometimes they may do it or they don't do it at all. You can.
Question for you.
Yes.
So in the event, because I have seen that, so in the event that a parent, which some of them do, lie, how do a doctor or professional go about doing an evaluation themselves? Because I have seen, I have witnessed myself, parents lie and do that. Okay, that's another question right there. So how do one go about doing that? And then, maybe.
Well, she can answer, she's something I don't want to say, but, so I run a home daycare for about 13 years. And, so I have a 1-year-old currently now. And she holds her bottle. She does not do, you have to kind of get directly on her for her to kind of give you eye contact. She does not answer to her name. She does not, you know, so I'm trying to get her to learn to kind of sit, you know, so dealing with like attention span, things like that, to build. She doesn't follow any of that. What she likes to do is anything that rolls, she rolls it all day. That's her thing. I'm aware of autism, things of that nature. You cannot, I'm not there to diagnose. However, I am the provider, I am the teacher, you have the social degree, things like that, because you have to find a way to bring it to the parent. They will lie. They are in denial. You have to understand that. But they can lie all they want. It's going to show. The test that she's talking about, I'm aware of the ages and stages, ASQ, things of that. That's what the doctor gives. So, and they can put on there all they want. You know, you're a doctor, you're going to know beyond that test anyway. You know, but I'm in the process, because this is my, so she's going to be 2 coming up. So I know that she is not where she should be on the scale, you know, under what she should be doing at 9 months, 10 months, things like that. So, but just to answer Pastor's question, they do lie. And they lie for different reasons, because my child is different. My child is not like Susie. My child, I want my child to be like Johnny. You know what I'm saying? Then you talking about mental illness for the parent, that goes, now they're in depression because their child is not like Johnny. You know what I'm saying? And they know it. They just don't want to discuss it. They're denying. But I'm saying that to say that she's 1, so I did speak with her, because the parent and I have a good rapport, we really do. So I asked her, I'm concerned, what does your doctor say about, you know, her? And she told me she took the test, and she's just a little delayed. Fine, I'll accept that. She has a delay. Okay, so then this is how, you know, we're gonna move forward with the delay. She want to say delay, that's fine. I you know, not going beyond that word, not going to autism, not going to any of that. I was glad that she said that part. They said she has a delay. You know, what did they state they were going to do? I always like to know, because I need to be on one accord with the parents. I need to be on one accord with the doctors, you know, things of that. Because I read everything that comes in. I read all the physicals that come in the box, because I didn't see that at the back of the just like where I am with this little one-year-old. I see things, but I can't, you just can't blurt it out. You just cannot do that with a parent. It's a certain way you gotta come, you know. I'm sure you'll get it that.
Absolutely, you all are on the road because my next slide is dealing with slow learners. Okay, so to answer you and Pastor's question, so on the ages and stages or on the FAQ concerning the child, we do know that parents are not truthful, and so as medical health professionals, we do things such as compose these questionnaires to catch you up. So there may be two of the same questions worded differently, and 9 times out of 10 there will be different answers. So if you're just reading through or flipping through and you're not reading just thoroughly, you will not understand what the question is asking. So for instance, one question would say, can your child walk up and down the stairs without the banister? Or can your child walk up the stairs one foot in after the other? And you would say, yes, often or all the time. And then the next question will say, does your child need assistance with any gross motor such as walking, skipping, and jumping? And you may say sometimes or never. Well, that's the same thing, honestly. They ask you if your child needs a banister, need help, holding the banister, and can they walk up the stairs by themselves? And you said yes all the time. But then you said that your child needs assistance as far as doing things such as gross motor, hopping, skipping, jumping, and walking. So we compose tests like that just to see if the parents are being 100% truthful. But also, if we have a parent that will mark always or all the time, then as professionals, we know that something is wrong and we should go ahead and test it ourselves. So the doctor may do something like tickle an arm if they're about to, give that child a shot. If the child is not responsive to that, we know that the parent was not truthful. Or if we come in and, how we greet, how we pair, how we build a rapport, hi, my name is such and such, and, do you want a sticker? We just give those cues just to see exactly where that child is at socially and developmentally. So, in the event that that parent is telling the truth, you can say, hey, this is just something that we can see on the project. They're not smiling, or they just may be, like, socially awkward.
You got a question in the back.
Yeah, to answer that, particularly us in the community have to be honest, because we say things like that child is special. We say things like those parents. Back in my day, if they didn't give me eye contact, I would have knocked them upside the head. That child is disrespectful. You need to do something with that child. So let's not act like the parents are hiding it because we ain't been supporting it properly. We talk about mental health as though we can beat it out of our children.
Amen. Amen. I do agree with that. We'll be touching that in just 1 second. So, how often should we complete an in-home ASQ? So, for children birth to 12 to 24 months, screenings and ASQs should be conducted every 4 to 6 months. If a delay is suspected, programs should rescreen in 2 to 3 months. For children who are 2 to 3 years old, every 6 months is adequate. So, for an example, for that child who is 1 year old and you're in-home daycare, if you're noticing that there is a delay, such as, she'll hold the bottle, or you're attempting to teach her how to hold the bottle, and she's also engaging in appropriate play, such as playing with balls. However, you see that she's not engaging in things such as different type of manipulative, so she can't properly hold a puzzle piece, or she's not engaging in social play. Those things are alarming, and you took the proper precautions to talk to her primary caregiver to say, hey, something is not right. She's reaching a milestone in this capacity, however, in another capacity, she is failing. So something that you would do is, again, rescreen just to see if those fine and gross motor development milestones have yet to be made, or she's simply not getting the adequate amount of time to do that outside of the daycare facility. So we know that most children will go home and sit on the iPad. Look, my child right there on the iPad. So that's what we do. In the meantime, us as parents, we work all day and we're tired. So what do? We go home, we cook dinner, and say, go in your room and play. You've been in school all day, I've been at work all day. Go occupy yourself while I cook dinner, while I get you ready to go down for bed. So when a child is acting out or they're not reaching that milestone, that lets us know that, number one, they're not being exposed properly to the things that they need in order to reach those developmental milestones, or number two, they're not getting the engagement to connect to connect the two. So if I'm not allowing my child to play with manipulative often, and then it's time to play with manipulative and they're not doing it, the disconnect is something is wrong with you, or you're just simply being defiant, you're being disobedient, you're being hard, you're not doing what I told you to do. So either it's going to be physical discipline, or it's going to be discipline in other ways, such as in a daycare facility, you're being punished, or you're not listening, we're going to give you a bad start for today. We put you in the red zone. So there's always a disconnect. Is there a question? Yes.
Good morning. Excuse me, my name is Eric. We always talk about the children. What about adults? Because we got some adults who need help. We talk about the children, but some adults don't want to recognize they have a problem. But if I see it, how can I address it to them without offending them? You know what I'm saying?
So are you referring to mental health in adults, or are you referring to mental health in children who have adults? Mental health in adults?
Yes.
So I think that, like we spoke on Asperger's, so seeing mental health disorders in adults, it looks completely different. So by the time they made it to adulthood, we can imagine that they're completely functional in some capacity. However, with having developmental delays in adults, it can arise things such as anger, such as rejection to constructive criticism, such as just completely the disconnect of, you're telling me that something is wrong with me, and I acknowledge the fact that, you're telling me that something is wrong with me, and I'm not understanding exactly what you're saying. So for some of us, we can say, oh, well, you have an attitude problem. And for someone, when I don't understand exactly what type of attitude you're talking about, I'm rejecting it. I don't understand. When simply, for me, I could just be living happy, or my response, or the way that I act is the way that I act. So when an adult has a mental health issue, 9 times out of 10, they're probably going to reject it. And so the best thing you can do is provide love for them, provide different strategies, provide just different reinforcements for them. So for a person who's, you say may have an attitude problem, or they have a substance abuse problem, and you don't know how to directly connect with that person, I would say number 1, provide resources. So things such as the substance abuse hotline, there's mental health hotlines, there are different programs, there are different things that you can possibly do to guide that person to that.
What about an intervention? If they don't receive that, I'm just asking a question. What about an intervention now? I'm asking a question. What about an intervention?
So intervention, you will probably have to direct that person to some type of group counseling. They will have to see a psychologist or a psychiatrist who can provide them with that clinical treatment. So when you enter intervention strategy-based solutions, you have to get an assessment, you have to be evaluated, you have to have a clinical treatment plan where that person can follow up with their therapist to work on whatever programs you have in place to have a different outcome.
What if they tell me you need to go too? So, because 9 times out of 10, this person will tell me I need to go too. So, I should just address it and go with them.
Absolutely. So at that point, it sounds like you all need a relationship or family therapist.
It's so funny he said that. Just piggybacking off of what he said, he said, what about the adults, and the children. Now, and I love to talk about children, that's what I do. However, the child's mother, okay? So she and I, like I said, I have a good rapport with my parents. They talk to me about everything. So this young lady does have mental illness. She didn't come out and say it. I know what she did say. She said, and I'm Bibi. She said, Miss Bibi, I have a problem. And so, I said, wait, it was so, I said, well, how are you addressing the problem? And she doesn't want to go to counseling. So she admitted. So the first thing I know is to admit. So she got to want to get help. You said about like the counseling, you have to want to do that. Intervention, we can bring an intervention all day long. I'm talking about like a family intervention. I am just a provider, but I don't have a problem sitting with her and gathering her family and having an intervention. But she does not. She has so much on her back. Not to mention, she has another child that she just had that's been in the hospital. The baby is like 8 months with a trait. That's a whole nother issue. The girl is messed up mentally. She's mentally ill. She is. So now the baby is suffering. The 1-year-old that I have in my care, like she said, so I'm doing everything that I can when she goes home. So I hear from the auntie, because I have 3 family members of the same household. She go home and she's sitting in front of the TV. She just like to watch braces on. I said, well, I'm a hands-on provider. You know, TV is very, very minimal. Only problem when you get ready for lunch and you gotta wait, that's it. Everything else is hands-on. These parents, you know, and she's sitting at home with the great-grandmother. So she's not, the mother's not even caring for her. Because the mother is mentally ill. So I'm just asking you a question. I've seen it. She's messed up. She needs help. I can't put out her business like that because we are mandated by the state. So I have a certain way as far as I can go. She knows.
Yes.
So it's not easy.
No, it's not.
You know, but I just give her a talk. I just listen. I give her a listening ear. She will cry, everything. You know, it's real. It's real out here.
I just want to say, dealing with these type of issues is not something that's going to happen overnight. It's not an overnight fix. It takes time. It takes courage. You know, it takes a lot to be able to address someone that has a mental illness, someone that has an addiction, because the first thing is denial. And so it's something that, you know, you have to go the long haul with. And you have to do it lovingly. You have to have patience. It's a whole lot that you have to bring to the table to be able to address those type of issues, you know. But you got to do it in love. You have to do it in love. So, but it's not something that happens overnight. The problem didn't start. It didn't get there overnight, and it won't be resolved overnight.
I love it here. Y'all come straight to my point. So, being in denial, so that was my response. So being in denial is the first response to any type of trauma. So whether that's grief, whether that's PTSD, so trauma happening directly to you or something around you, that's the very first response would be in denial. So talking about family issues concerning disabilities, whether that's within yourself, that person, or